What's up, everyone? Kane here, captain of the day's Pirates, coming at you with a little bit of sim action today. Um, Changed it up a little bit. Wasn't quite able to make it out to our local league last night. Unfortunately, had a conflict, but I did get sim access in the past week or so or two, and I did now start plugging into ranked sim as well. So, as the title of this video points to, I've played 50 games with my RP Luffy list. I'm going to do a quick deck tech of the list that I have been running, then talk more about the results and kind of the matchups that I played, and where I see the deck in general right now. Um, just quick intros as we get going. We are going to be rolling out, like I said, Days Pirates pretty soon. Teddy's going to be releasing some content on his own channel, I believe, already, if not soon. We'll keep linking stuff like that below. But yeah, making a big push for 500 subs. If you're not subscribed and you're liking the content and want to see more RP Luffy going into the end of the year and next set, please do subscribe, but also like, comment, all that stuff. But yeah, well, let's jump right into deck tech, and then, like I said, we'll go more into the results. And I think we'll wrap up with one game of ranked sim just to kind of show how it works. It's very easy and kind of fun to plug into. So RP Luffy, it's our 6,000 power, um, 3 life leader, red purple. If you're at 0 or 8 down, you can get an active down. We are on 3 Nami searchers right now. Realistically, I've just kind of been tweaking this number, and in the late game, you don't really want to be continuing to top deck Namis over and over again. I definitely could see a case going back up to 4. In '09, I'll be back up to 4 with some of the other support. But at the end of the day, the only threat that we have that is searchable by Nami is our Gear 5 Luffy. Everything else that is our top end gets bottomed by Nami. And there are some awkward games where you'll draw her, play her, bottom all your top deck, or all your top end rather, and then kind of be awkward for the next couple turns after that as well. Beyond that, our ramp package is the same. We have 4 of the 3 cost Zoro. When attacking 3 or less life, get that active Don. Very crucial to this deck overall. Um, and then Mr. 2, that on play get an active Don, and then when attacking, get copy one of your opponent's power to this character. Just an excellent threat, anchoring kind of down our ramp. And I do have one additional ramp piece for a little bit of a pushback if someone does get like a turn 2 6K out on board, things like that. But it's to die for, 3 cost, get 1 active Don, and if your opponent has 6,000 base power or greater character, get a second active Don. And it also triggers out of life. Card's been pretty solid. Sometimes you would just rather play the Zoro, or you get both, and it's a tiny bit awkward, but not that often. And then you just pitch this to Queen or a Jet Gatling pretty easily. Um, so with this too, with the 50 games that I've gone into the sim, the first 25 or so, the Baccarats here were the banished Zoro that you've seen in previous lists. So that was one change that I made about halfway through, specifically for some of the aggressive and specifically Zoro matchup. Having the Baccarat, I think, is going to be helpful. Um, Zoro is still great until like Nami and Enel specifically, so that can be a meta call based on what you're seeing. As we'll see in the results, I saw a lot of Zoro. So yeah, we'll talk more about that. But then we do kind of have this blocker package with Baccarat is a 3 cost 4K blocker. And then once per turn, when your opponent attacks, you are able to trash a card and give 2,000 power to something for the turn or battle. So it kind of functionally makes any card in your hand into a 2K once per turn. So there is some sequencing plays where your opponent can play around this. And that's part of the reason why I haven't loved it, especially with like black decks being able to just remove things so effectively. But that being said, I think the hedge against some of the aggression is helpful. Uh, I don't know. I'm going to be tracking this going forward, but based on what I saw in the matchup so far, I think Baccarat's a pretty solid addition in that slot that was previously occupied by Zoro. But then beyond that, we do have still 2 laws. This is also great into Nami and Enel, so that's part of the reason why I do still include that. And I kind of decided to keep that over the Zoro for those matchups. When your opponent has 7 or more cards, you can on play Don -1 to trash 2 at random. So it can completely disrupt your opponent's game plan. Very effective. Queen, once we get Gum Gum Giant in '09, and I will be doing more '09 playing and testing pretty soon or in the near future. But I'm trying to anchor down my '08 list for some of the store regionals that I have next month. So right now, this is another card that just helps us cycle our hand, maybe get rid of some awkwardness in what we have, and also maybe have a good blocker or a body, depending on the matchup and what we're doing as well. So we do have 6 blockers in addition to our 4 Sanji 2Ks. That when you have 2 fewer Dom than your opponent, it is 3 cost less, but it's otherwise a 6 cost 6K blocker, Straw Hat searchable. And right now this is 4, and then we do have 3 additional, so 7 total 2Ks. We have Frankie. It's a 5 cost 4K. If you have 8 or more Don and a Don attached, it gets Rush. So can be an additional threat. It comes up every once in a while, but it's really just a searchable 2K. Having that additional flexibility to kind of declunk our hand to some extent, I think is very helpful. Then our kind of top end, or I guess for one other searchable character is Robin, also kind of a tech choice. Really good against Rebecca's, Mr. Twos, Rosanates, other 1K blockers. I really like this card, especially as a 2 of right now. It just feels pretty solid. It's a 1K when you don't need it, and a matchup so it's not as helpful. Um, so on play KO, a 1K or less power character, 1 cost 2K power, 1K counter, Straw Hat searchable. Then for our kind of top end threats, starting with our 7 cost Eustace Captain Kidd. On player when attacking, Don -1 to give your leader plus 1,000 until the start of your next turn. So it makes our 6,000 power leader into our 7,000 power leader. And then at the 8 cost slot, we do have 2 Rayleigh right now. The last list that you probably saw me post had 3 Rayleigh. But right now I have 2. Choose up to 2 of your opponent's characters. One gets 3,000, -3,000. The other gets -2,000 until the end of your opponent's next turn. And then KO one of your opponent's 3,000 or less. So it is very good for a tempo swing back, pop a body, disrupt your opponent. But it is just still a 8K body, and it's not going to always be good if your opponent's very wide. Your new gates and your kids are just going to more effectively limit the board. But this removal option is extremely good for us in very specific matchups. And I did have a third one that I have flexed into a Shanks, to have a way to remove some of those very big bodies. Looking at black decks with jacks or geckos, or just for a big body to slam against a Nami or an Enel. Um, so the I think is good enough. I am going to be tracking this and thinking about if this would be better as a third Rayleigh again. But I have liked this and it has played all right. And again, now that I've added Baccarat again as well, um, between that, Queen, and Jet Gatling, I have a decent number of ways to kind of get it out of my hand in some of the more aggressive or matchups that I don't have the opportunity to play it. So beyond that, we do have our dragons. We are up to 3 of those. Rush on play, give your leader or character plus our 2 rested Don. So this is just very dynamic threat. Opens up a lot of play lines into some of our worse or more sketchy matchups. Into Black, Bonney, and Enel. Dragon is phenomenal. It's just another finisher. It's very reliable, durable on board. It costs 9K, is not the easiest to remove, as we know with geckos, and it's just another kind of help reach finisher or establish that board even further while you're going for your gear 5. Newgate on play, give it your leader plus 2,000 till the start of your next turn, so it makes our leader an 8K. Kid into Newgate, and then Swing with Kid is a 9K leader, so that's also very fun. But then also Don 2, when attacking, KO one of your opponent's 3K or less. So this can be great with playing Newgate when you get to your 9 Don, and the following turn playing Rayleigh, popping something with Rayleigh, then putting 2 Don on Newgate and popping something else. Especially when one or two of those things are blockers, you just put immense pressure on your opponent with that 12K swing. Newgate is phenomenal. I was thinking I might go down one to be a fourth kid just to have a slightly lower or more consistent 7 down curve. Um, but at the end of the day, Newgate is just so powerful, and that KO effect is so effective. I'm liking the 3-3 split still. Again, maybe could come down to a meta call. And then our Gear 5 Luffy, the reason we play this deck and our favorite way to win the game, on play Don -10, return your characters to the bottom, get an extra turn, and then activate main one, rest one, activate main once per turn rather, rest one Don to get an active Don. Then, I mean, I'm not going to talk too much more about Gear 5. I think we all know. If you don't, go through some of my other deck techs. Love this card. Then Radical Beam, that's our kind of staple counter that gives us 1 Don for 4K counter. I am on 3 of them because, again, when you're trying to play on curve, you're ramping to 7th cost, tapping out for this. You're ramping to 9 cost, tapping out for this. And then at 10, if you play a second Newgate, or if you play Newgate at 10, you can only play at most 1 Radical Beam. So that's why I'm on 3. It's randomly searchable. Obviously, playing 4 of these, might up your consistency to see them. There's also matchups where, like, against Nami, if you sit with 3 Radical Beams in hand, you're going to be pretty peeved because they're going to do nothing. But yeah, it can just be not the most helpful, especially against decks like Zoro that are swinging for 6K, 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 6K. They're going to rip those Radical Beams aggressively or try to. So yeah, I think 3 is just a good number because I do kind of flex that 4th one into this Beam Sword, which is a 2 cost, Dom -1, plus 2K, and rest one of your opponent's characters. It's a 1 card 2-for-1 for 2 Dom, so that's very important and can completely change the way your opponent is trying to threaten you with lethal. So I just really like this card as an additional flex, and that trigger for ramp is lovely. Jambe. Jambe is Jambe. Make something unblockable for 1 cost. And then the trigger is also sometimes helpful. 2 of them. I just don't think I need more than 2 of them. And then Jet Gatling, 2 of these as well. It's your 0 cost pitch counter, 3K with that trigger. Having these 4 ramp triggers, it doesn't come up all the time, but it comes up. It is helpful to be able to get that ramp out of life as well. So we like to see it. This list has been performing rather well for me. And let's actually kind of jump into the results of my 50 games on the ranked sim. So actually, 1 second. Pull this over here like this. Perfect. So I did go 50 or like 51%, 25 and 25. I had a little bit of a low roll or a low a lull in some of my performance around halfway through the games, I guess you could say. But overall, very happy with the way the deck performed. We're going to go into the matchup specifically. I will say that I underperformed against Lucci and Black decks in general, to my liking. I think some of the matchups I did lose 2 games against the same Lucci player that was a very good pilot. And then I did split with an ST14 Luffy that was also a pretty solid pilot. But as I'm kind of going into this, 1 second. I'm going to talk about the matchups, and it's kind of cool. I ended up joining the Patreon just to kind of see, some of this other data and things that might be available. But 50 games, 3 list was that about halfway into the games, about 25 games in, I swapped the laws for Baccarats for like 1 game or 2 games and left the Banished Zoro with no laws. But then I actually decided to remove the Banished Zoro and re-add the laws. So that's kind of the 3 different lists that were played here. And I'm a little bit bummed out because I was originally tracking my matchups, and then I realized that they tracked them here. But yesterday they had a little bit of a server issue that was like kind of causing a disruption. And some of my lower, like these ones are all correct up here, I know for sure. Maybe even I think the Calgara is correct too, but some of the lower ones aren't quite correct, and I kind of have one way of proof that, to show that I'm not completely crazy. But this top end, we'll kind of start with, and I'll talk about some of the other decks that I had. I have some weird numbers there. But I mean, 8 games against Zoro. I think a lot of people are liking this the chopper list, the Zuru list. It's very effective. It's very it's a very tough matchup for us. The way that they are able to present when I played it in paper, if you saw my video last week, I was attacked 6K 4 times on turn 2. So it can put out just an immense amount of pressure, and it also has a rush top end that just once you hit that first life, then those kitten killers are swinging in for 8K, and then dragons, and it's a slog. Really, this matchup it comes down to wanting I have to look for Nami and Robin, and like I've even just played Robin on turn 1 with with nothing to remove, just to have a body to swing into their board, and that's when you win. Is when you're actually able to effectively play Nami or Robin into Zoro into like a Baccarat or Mister Two, and you have to check their board aggressively. And even so, if they have that top end threat, they're still going to end up being pretty tough if they have they're hitting their rush characters as well. Um, I am gonna do some more matchup analysis. I think people would like that level of content as well. So if you would like to see kind of more specific matchups, what I think I'll do is I'm gonna start um, recording more of my ranked games and using some of that footage uh, compiled with specific conversations about matchups. I think will be maybe a good series into '08 for the community. Please let me know if you think that'd be something you'd benefit from or you'd enjoy. And then I also think I was talking to Vivi. I think I might start streaming some of this ranked gameplay too. I wonder if there'd be any value or any enjoyment from y'all to see that. So please comment below if you would like to see some streams of some ranked gameplay as well. But yeah, so 8 games, 2 wins, 6 losses, pretty brutal. Some of those were nail biters, 1 turn, 2 turns within closing the gap. But yeah, just that matchup is going to be tough. I'm hoping some of the other controlling decks are able to police it, but we'll see what that looks like. I have seen it show up on a little bit of topping already, so we'll see. ST13 Luffy. This is supposed to be one of our strong matchups. Fundamentally, the way that they make their 9K leader, and then we get to Gear 5 and make our leader unblockable. Um, or make our characters unblockable should generally lean in our favor. That being said, with the latest versions being on like multiple Kuzans and utilizing the Egghead Luffy more effectively, it can be a little bit more of a slog than kind of previously. We kind of just usually previously just kind of rolled over them. To that end, if they really hit the nuts and they play extremely tight, they can make it very hard for you to kill them. But if your curve is strong enough with you know, Newgate into Gear 5 or, Dragon or something like that, you're usually able to pressure them out, and Gear 5 plus Jambe will still just absolutely rip the game from them. So I was 3-1 against them. Last night I played back-to-back games against a pretty good pilot that just really hit all its pieces and very tight games. So yeah, 3-3 split there. Reiju, I did have one game that just didn't count at all. Like it didn't show up on my record at all. Um, because like I don't know, it was weird, but it was around the time of the server issues, and someone like they just kind of left the game, and it just didn't seem to register. So I think I was actually 6-0 against Reiju, but 5-0 here on record. Just being able to take second away from them, so you're ahead on Don, and then being able to play Mr. 2 and use that to match their EKG 7K swing. And then the following turn, play that kid into Newgate. The kid into Newgate curve, just like playing against Law, just absolutely abuses Reiju. If you hit that curve, you win a lot of the times, especially if you have Robin to get rid of the chopper blockers on top of, whittling away at their health. ST14 Luffy. This matchup I expected to perform a little bit better in. I wanted to this matchup. I actually don't think I've seen it since like the last 20 games or so I played. So I did have some like I said, I went 1-1 with a pretty good pilot on this. Um, where I where the concern or the struggle with this deck comes into play is the Kuzan into that new Jack curve is brutal. Being able to develop the Kuzan and then use that plus Jack pops your 7K. So even if you're ramping and you ramp into your kid, they can often match it one turn later with their um, Kuzan into Jack, or Ice Age into Jack if you play like a you know dragon or something like that as well. So when they played those two bodies and they're able to protect that Kuzan or play multiple Kuzans. I had one game against one where he had three Kuzans on board and I just couldn't get through them. That does become a little tough for us. That is where Rayleigh is very helpful. And that's also where being able to ramp into a Shanks that can get rid of that Jack, I think, is also part of the reason that I did add that Shanks. I don't think the Shanks is in for most of my games up against ST14 Luffy, but this is one that I'll definitely want to be tracking because if this matchup is this bad, um, that is a concern, but I don't believe it truly is as much as the data kind of shows here. Bonney, this is actually a really bad matchup for us. I hate this matchup. Just the way that she interacts with being able to rest our characters, and we also have our kids and new gates. You want to play them and then swing with your leader. Just everything about playing against Bonney is very frustrating, and they are also on the 9 cost Zoro that can nearly one shot us in a lot of cases. So it's just an absolute pain to play against, and also one of the reasons I've added Shanks. And the two losses were before I added Shanks, and then I added Shanks and was able to Shanks a Zoro, and that was the game that I did beat a Bonney, so that was nice. Purple Black King, when they are able to set up a Jack, it's a little bit nerve wracking, but we're just kind of faster than them, and we kind of beat up on them relatively effectively. They're just a little bit too slow and don't quite do enough compared to some of the other removal decks. I do really like the deck and what it's doing, but it hasn't been a very hard matchup thus far. Lucci. Lucci is a pain in the butt. Him still being able to play Gecko and Rebecca and his entire support package and get better 2Ks is just tough. Not really much else to say about that. Again, I don't think I saw a Lucci in my last like 25 games or so. These were a little bit earlier on. Um, I did actually lose a couple games within here with like misclicks on the sim because I'm still relatively new, and I think probably like 2 or 3 games were true like misclick losses. I can't remember if one was against Lucia or Luffy, but either way, again, this is a matchup we're going to be seeing, and if this is looking like reflective in the long run, which I don't genuinely believe it is, I think that is just kind of some bad breaks and some well piloted games. Um, but this is something where I might need to pivot slightly to get that Nationals invite from a store regional or something like that. So, but I want to see some more of these matchups, and I genuinely think these are highly winnable for us. Going a little bit deeper into the pit here, and Calgara. This one's a little bit of like an aggro trade off. You got to chew through their counters, know how to attack them effectively. Generally speaking, a gear 5 is just enough if you've played up your curve and played effectively. Putting this is where the numbers start to get a little bit wonky here, if I'm recalling correctly, because I'm pretty positive I was 1-1 against Pudding. Um, I can't 100% validate this. This is a game. This matchup is a very interesting game plan of playing around her leader effect and trying not to give her free value if you can prevent it. Sometimes she'll just have it, right? If she just has the Viola or, flump into Katakuri or whatever she needs. Sometimes she'll be able to ramp either way, but sometimes just not attacking to prevent the free double or triple ramp up to 10 mom can be very important. But like I said, I think I was 1-1 in this. It is a volatile matchup. If she gets to play her curve better than you do, and has more counter than you, it can get a little sketchy. But generally, I've been winning this matchup outside of ranked, and now, like I said, I was pretty positive 1-1 here. Anel, this is where I start to know these numbers are 100% incorrect. Anel, I am 2-0'd. I very grindy, very. I wish I recorded these games. They're very tight, well played games, in my opinion. But I 2-0'd Anel. I know that for a fact. And Anel's not the best matchup for us, but I don't think it's gonna be that popular. But if you play it tight, and I actually did both of these matchups, do tiny bit of starving, leaving him up at 3 life until I had Kid, Newgate, and maybe like ready to swing with the dragon too, and put a lot of pressure on all at once, and then grind out from there. So I did like that strategy, but I definitely 2-0'd an L on here. Like I said, I do have one game where I can go back and show you that there isn't an accuracy here, but there was some server issues, so I'm not trying to like say there's any issue with their data in general. I think it's probably just a one-off because they literally were talking about this in the Discord yesterday. Because I also against Nami, I want to say I was actually 1-2, but maybe I was 1-1. But no, I'm pretty positive I was 1-2 against Nami. The two games that I lost, they just hit a ton of triggers, and then also just really effectively got their Pilafs and Kayas, and I think the first one that I lost against Nami, she went from like 20 cards in deck to like 8 cards in deck in one turn, and then milled out basically with counters or something like that. It was great. I was like, did not expect that much burst to happen. But yeah, I was like 1-2. Again, this matchup should be generally favored for us if we're hitting gear fives. We can play around her effectively. The second one I lost, she was actually on Blue Crocodile that like gives your events a discount, and that helped her get there because I couldn't remove that, which is kind of hilarious. Katakuri, 1-1 sounds right. I may have been 2-0, but 1-1 sounds right. This matchup is generally favored for us if they don't hit insane triggers. Actually, no, I think I did 2-0 this one. But that's where it's a little bit of a bummer that I was originally tracking all this and then I stopped, and then now some of these lower numbers are a little bit wacky. Um, then Doflamingo, I did 1-0 them. Obviously, when they get their starter deck, they're going to be extremely powerful, and that's something to be mindful of, or something we're going to have to deal with into October. But right now, it is decently effective for us. Um, yeah. Actually, I may have lost. I don't remember. I know we played two Kaidos. But then Kuro, never played against that before. I did beat Kuro relatively handily. So I did beat Kuro, but then I lost to Bella Betty. Bella Betty is another matchup that's relatively not favored for us. I think when I played against this Bella Betty on turn 3, she swung at me with a Karasu on board. She swung at me 6K, 6K, 8K. And then the next turn, 8K, 8K, 9K, I think, or something like that. And yeah, just the aggro and the triggers, and this deck is just pretty tough for us in general. So these should be flipped 1-0 and 0-1, but who cares, I guess. But just I do know that for a fact. Kid did out aggro me. He did beat me down pretty effectively. And then Marco, I did beat. This matchup, I think, is relatively favored for us as well. We just kind of play the that mid game grind a bit more effectively. If they get to like play two Marco blockers and keep them alive, there's a lot to that, and you got to play through it. But especially with the addition of like Rayleigh, I just find this matchup pretty effective for us. And then Uta, I did beat early on the ladder as well. So I do think I'm pretty positive this is all the leaders that I played. I don't know if the numbers all sum out to 150. Maybe I should double check that. I don't think so, because obviously some of these aren't quite right. And maybe I just don't know this, and there should be a cutoff on this. But some of these numbers just aren't correct, like I said. But I know my record is. Aside from, I think one Reiju game is straight up not counted, but I'm not that tripped up on it. But here, how I can kind of show you that I'm not completely crazy. Has your match history here of like kind of recent games, and I did beat Marco. The green is wins. I beat the Marco, so I'm not completely insane there. But yeah, overall, pretty happy with the way the deck is looking. I want to kind of get some more reps in some of these matchups that we're going to be seeing at the top end. Because I do think we have a pretty strong position, but I need to be able to prove that, right? So that's kind of the goal here in the next few weeks. But I am actually just going to jump into a uh, ranked game. So this bounty system can just be downloaded from uh, the kind of interface here. Play ranked. You can launch it or download it from here. I can't remember exactly the setup steps, but it's pretty simple. You basically just link your account. I'm assuming it's only available on computer. If it is available for phones or something, let me know or post in the comments. But it's really easy. You just kind of hit play, and then either you're going to be instructed to start a match, and it'll send the code to your opponent, or you will be able to get a code from your opponent, and then um, take two. I wanted to show how easy it is to get into a game and then had a little bit of a connection issue. My understanding, though, from their communications in the Discord is kind of a one-off, not something that's kind of happened before. Or, is going to be an ongoing issue. They're making some server changes, so. Um, but yeah, now that I matched with an opponent, in this case, they're going to be the one creating the lobby. Then when I get the code, I'll just copy and paste it and join with my deck. So this is going to be kind of my test run for talking over live. I think in general it's going to be more productive. Of course, Bonney. I think in general it's going to be more productive to. Um, hmm, Overall, like I said, kind of for this exact reason, I think it's going to be a little bit more practical to either stream. If you guys would like to see some of that, I would entertain that. But otherwise, to record these and kind of go through them in a more specific fashion. Because I chose to go first here, mostly because I want to knock her off the Zoro or Kid with 9 Don curve. And now I'm going first. This hand has ramp and could be kept, but this hand is better, I think. Not really. I don't know. This matchup's tough. I'm just gonna swing into the Bonney here. Great, gets to play a Rouge next turn. Yeah, just Bonney. Can't let them get into this recurring value. Searching up their Rouges, Cavendish, Kids, all stuff we don't want them to have. So got to take that off the board. Would be love a Zoro here. Going up a Dom would have been nice too, but having no top end is sketchy against Bonney. So we just kind of deal with it. Oh, there's the Zoro. That's funny. Here, I want to pressure. I can't guarantee ramp though. It's a little frustrating. I want to go 8 and then play Zoro Juro, but I don't want that ramp to be denied because I need to play. I need to play my new gate next turn. So I have to swing 7K first. In most other matchups, you can kind of get away, or in a lot of other matchups, I might be willing to play Bond Clay and use that additional Don to swing. But Bonney effect makes that impractical because it would just rest on our Bond Clay. But now having the Bond Clay on this curve is all right because, well, they're not going to have play it this turn. But as I say, if they're playing a Hawkins, it's a 7K swing. Or if they play a Cavendish, it could be a 6K swing. So that can be a nice little bit of upside on this side of things. They are going to swing with the Rouge. Interesting. I don't mind that. We'll counter that. In this deck, too, you want to be really efficient with your counters. Like, I don't think I want to give her a 2 and a 1 here. Okay, that's fine. So you really are going to let me swing into a Rouge. That's interesting. I would love to get a swing out of this Bond Clay, but if I swing with this Bond Clay, then she just rests it. This is why Bonnie's so annoying, right? It's, I can't even take both these bodies off board when it should be super free to do so. Um, so with that being the case, though, we just slam and slam. If they want to give us two 2Ks for that, I don't really mind. They could make a play to rest the Newgate, but don't think so. I think she's thinking about it. Yeah, so resting the Bond Clay makes sense. Two 2Ks. We take that. If it was into life, you probably would have just taken it. So we were actually ripped the 2Ks there. What we'd really like to see off the top would be a Rayleigh. That'd be pretty sweet. Um, but if not, we got some counters. We're an AK lead. Not very likely she's gonna be able to pressure us all that much. 1 into 1. So funny because I won a 1K out of that. I hate this matchup. Okay. Hawkins for sure. At least she didn't get a search out of that. That kind of makes me happy. 2K, we take that. I don't see any reason not to just slam 10 in the face. And go Newgate. Seems right. Block with a Rouge. Gotta be. Alright. Or block 2K, 2K. Oh. Okay. Still just jam the Newgate. So it does just develop another 10K and makes it hard for them to pressure back into me. Now we really want to see a Rayleigh. I have red beam open, but I'm not too likely to need it. Unless sometimes people will start swinging big into that Newgate to try and get off board. So hypothetically, being able to, it's probably just going to be a Doflamingo. Oh, okay. But sometimes people will just swing big into Newgate and or freeze it. Okay. No pressure on life is good there. The leader effect is good there too. I kind of want to play the queen first, but that's probably bait. I guess we do. This punishes. If I draw a law, this would be punished. So I don't need red beam up, but I have a lot of counter. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna kill the body. You do not want card advantage happening. Ideally, honestly, I would rather she block. Okay. Speaking of not blocking, okay. Now we go here, we go here, we go here. I cycle that out of hand because we don't need it anymore. Where is the top end, friends? There you go, leader effect. Do I develop a Bond Clay? I think so. Against Bonney, it's really important to get multiple swingers out there. And that 1K could be helpful. Maybe I end up regretting it. That sucks. But oh geez. Okay. Yeah, yeah. No block. We're here. This we're having the 2Ks is gonna be nice. But I do think probably not gonna play Baccarat. Go here. I'm not gonna double Sanji, but attacking with Frankie could be valid. Okay, now that's just rude. That's just for real rude. This is tough. Second bad game's kind of nice. Let's see here if oh yeah, block. Yeah, it's tough. Um, can Frankie take something off the board? What if we put 3 down on Frankie? Surely they have a 2K, right? Might I might be cooked. So this matchup's brutal, man. A Rouge, Hawk, yeah. This is the matchup where you want to see Rayleigh and Shanks a lot. See, they're attacking with 8. I think I have to do that. As soon as they swing a 10, it hits. This, that. I really just have to scare them out of going for lethal, I guess. I don't know if I can. 6, we take, and we trigger. 2K life is good. 2K life is good. I have to counter out of this, because if I don't, she just puts it all on Dofi. If he could chicken out and not swing the Hawkins, that'd be great. But I think if he spreads this aggressively, he still just 2 hits me. Unless I hit something out of life. That's a rude swing. Yeah. That curve, that's the one that makes this matchup tough. So yeah. That's also part of the reason why the live commentary might not be the most practical. But that's the vibe. Now we're back on. Your stats update relatively quickly. Not immediately, I stalk it too often, but pop up in a second. But yeah, Bonney matchup is going to be a tough one. We got to just hope that Lucci. Basically, the thought or goal for me is that either that Lucci and ST14 Luffy police Bonney enough and that we can use our advantage over them. But the record says otherwise so far. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But thanks for checking it out, and we'll continue the ranked grind.